Hey YouTube, it's me, Severin. I got another video today on Satisfactory. I'm going to give you some beginner tips, some issues I ran into, how I solved them, and a quick tour of my base. Let's get into it. So, some tips. Things that I wish I had noticed beforehand, but now I kind of have to live with them. Tip number 1. When you're placing down your foundations, at least the initial ones, if you're trying to place them down directly on the ground, I highly recommend not going with these single wide foundations. You go into the menu here and look at your foundation options. You have an 8x1, an 8x2, and an 8x4. If you put this 8x1 down directly on the grass, it'll actually clip through and be visible. And you know, if you're someone who's going for something that's going to be aesthetically pleasing eventually, it's really going to drive you nuts when you first start out. As you can see right here, it's clipping through pretty aggressively. Tip number 2, you're trying to put down your full-scale big mining machine here, the Miner MK.1. You may find that it's giving you an interference issue or encroaching on the other's clearance. That means that you probably have a node in your mine, and that's why I won't let you place it. So the only thing you have to do to get rid of a node is just beat it with your little pickaxe here. When this thing's deleted, it'll let you put down your miner and you're good to go. I built foundations and pillars and columns trying to get this thing to place, and then eventually I figured out, oh, you just smack that rock in the middle, it'll let you build your miner. Then you're good to go. Tip number 3. If you're like me and you aren't very observant, when you first get started, you're going to start hooking up your power poles, you're going to build some constructors, some assemblers, some smelters, and you're going to pretty quickly realize there's a pretty strict limit per generator or biomass generator, how many things you can connect to it and run at the same time. Well, our home module here actually comes with 2. And looking at it like this, that seems pretty obvious, but if you're me, you only ever somehow notice the first one, hooked everything up, and we're stuck at about 4 smelters and 2 constructors. Next tip I got for you is these slugs you see over here on this tree. I still don't have a use for them, but I happen to have seen other YouTube videos around here. And these are used to speed up your mining machines and your assemblers and overclock them essentially. So anytime you see those in the distance, you want to make sure you're picking them up. Next tip I got for you is you always want to keep your Xeno Xapper in your inventory or on your persons. I don't know how I've done it, but about 5 or 6 times I've put this thing in storage hitting deposit all. Before you know it, you're out in the middle of nowhere and you've got one of these guys over here shooting fireballs at you. Or one of the most stealthy animals I've ever seen in my life, those bull charger animals that charge you and bounce you up into the air. If you don't have one of these on you, you essentially can't defend yourself and you just have to take it. So keep this on you at all times, and hopefully I don't die right here while I'm trying to record this and fight this fire-breathing hammerhead shark guy. Now we find out what happens when you die too, so I mean, bonus content. Oh, look at that. We made it out alive. RIP. Alright, it's time for the factory tour. I'll try to point out some stuff that really drives me nuts and also just kind of give you an idea of what I got going on here. So, first off, this game you really got to plan ahead when you get started. Things you don't really think about that are going to be a problem turn into a problem pretty quickly. So first things first, when you place your initial hab here, make sure you have the door, which is going to be on this side. Got to get the general shape of this thing. You want this to be facing in the right direction when you start. I mean, there's no good reason to come in here, but for whatever reason, I think it's cool to have a little hub base. You come in here, you got a bathroom. Some guy wrote some pretty bad stuff on the wall here if you bother to read it. And I just think it's a neat spot to kind of walk into, hang out, you know, RP. But yeah, you want to make sure your door's facing the right way because it's pretty annoying when it's not. When you're starting off, you're going to notice that there's, you know, 4 or 5 pretty major things you're going to need crafted, and you're going to use a lot of them. So, first 3 resources, you got iron, copper, and limestone. Those are going to be your bread and butters, at least up until the point that I'm at right now. Copper and iron, you need to smelt. So you need to make at least 1 smelter for each coming out of your miners, obviously. But for iron, because I need to make a lot of iron rods and a lot of iron plates, I found it was easier to just make a smelter dedicated to my iron plates and a smelter dedicated to my iron rods, because it seems like the choke point is actually the constructors, but just for whatever reason, that's the way I decided to go with it. So let's take a look at what we're going on there. So to power this behemoth, I built 4 biomass burners, or biomass generators. Those things are going to drive you nuts. Easily the most annoying, tedious part so far is you get about maybe 20 minutes of runtime when you go and pick flowers for these things. You dump your grass in here and you got, like I said, maybe 30 minutes of runtime, and then you got to run out, pick a bunch of grass. As you can see, my plant is currently not moving. It's because I'm all out of fuel. So still working towards coal power, but you know, we do what we do for now. For my copper, I got it coming down this massive conveyor belt. So you got your miner there, comes down this conveyor. When you're placing your conveyors, notice these poles, you know, on first click, it'll put your conveyor just kind of on the ground. Of course, it's not going to give me, but anyway, it'll auto use these stands. So when you place these, you can raise them up and down, which kind of gives you a good elevation marker for your conveyors. Anyway, copper mine's up here. Copper comes down, makes its way over to the first smelter. So in my brain, it was like, oh, I'll just place these 3 smelters right next to each other and it'll be easy. Well, you don't really plan ahead for conveyor belts coming into your smelters. You start running into issues. So my conveyors look like crap right now, and everyone said this thing's going to turn into spaghetti. Well, it did. So you got your smelter here for my copper, or sorry, my smelter here for my copper. Comes down, loops around. Smelter, all you do is select, I want to make copper. It makes copper. This outputs into a constructor. The constructor converts that into wire, which then I can manually take and turn into cable, or I just leave it as wire because most of the initial turn-ins, they cost wire. I have the 2 iron constructors, which come out of my 2 iron mines listed right here. Once again, when you're placing things, you really want to think ahead about, hey, how is the conveyor belt going to come out of this thing? Because what I didn't realize with this was if I put this miner facing in this direction, my conveyor belt actually sticks too far out here and I can't even make the bend to get into the constructor. So instead, I had to make my conveyor belt go all the way out and around, come back around, and then into the constructor. So plan ahead when you're working on these things. Over here is my other iron miner. Conveyor into here, smelts it down into iron bars. And I believe this one is making my iron plates, which it is. So I take all that, I dump it into storage containers. I kind of treat these as buffers. So it seems like conveyor belt transfer is like your big limiting factor, at least right now it is. And that's even more accelerated by the fact that I have these going into this conveyor belt combiner, or it has a more fancy name, but that's what I call it, conveyor merger. So it seems like when you're going into a conveyor merger, it's prioritizing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you actually reduced your speed even more because of the limited amount that this conveyor can even move at the same time. So I have all of the plates and bars and everything all combine, go into a belt, go into another merger, and then into this crate, so that I can walk up to this, boom, it's got everything. I hit take all, I go over to the turn-in station, and I turn in everything that thing requires at the time. Over here, limestone mine right there down the hill. Limestone comes up, goes into my constructor. It's then converted into concrete, because you're going to use a lot of concrete when you first start. All of these platforms take concrete. A lot of just the construction stuff in general takes concrete. Conveyor belts, especially if you're making really long conveyor belts, they can use a lot of plating, and I believe the poles use concrete. So concrete into this, into the merger, and then into my, once again, I like to have a single point where I'm pulling all my materials. I noticed pretty early it was annoying to run around to the plate bin and then go to the bar bin and then go to the wire bin. It's easier if you just sort it all and send it all in one crate and let it go. So that's pretty much it so far. I still really trying to progress towards coal power. I don't even see it yet in my HUD options. I'm not sure what tier it unlocks at, but it's gonna be huge when you get there, because having to constantly go out and pick a bunch of weeds and fill up the biomass generators is honestly the thing that slows you down the most. And it's pretty frustrating when you kind of want to let the system run and do its thing and get you materials, and it just keeps running out of power. But that's the way it is for now, and you know, I'm gonna keep working towards coal power. If you want to see me struggle in real time and work through these issues that I hopefully helped you with at the beginning of the video, come check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Zevran. I try to play at least 3 times a week. I don't have much of a schedule right now, but I'm working towards one. You know, just drop a follow and check out when I'm live. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.